Check, check, check. Hello, hello. Can you hear me? Can you hear me out there? Hello, hello. Check, check. Probably need to bring the music down some. There we go. All right. Let's get this bad boy rolling. So today we're going to be talking about Finally It's Here comic. Got it in my hands. It showed up earlier this week. I think it was like Tuesday. It showed up on my doorstep way earlier than what I had anticipated, but we got it in hand finally. So I figured that today we'll kind of go through some of my processes and what I did to get from start to finish on this thing. Just a general gist of that. And I think in the future I'll probably sit down and actually like record like a full on like process video. I understand that there's a million videos out there that other people have made about processes and things like that when it comes to making a comic book, but obviously there's a million videos out there because everybody has their own ways of doing it. So, maybe you can learn a thing or two. But ultimately, the main goal of the book and what I wanted to do was I wanted to get people who may not have been published before, or people who have been kind of stagnant, haven't been drawing as much, to get motivated to just draw more comics, which is exactly what we had done. We had a bunch of submissions. I had gone through and chose people kind of all over the spectrum in terms of their drawing ability and everything like that, because again, I kind of wanted everybody to get motivated into drawing comics. So if you sent something to me that was somewhat presentable or at least readable as a comic, I was okay with publishing it. There were some people that we had to bounce pages back to in terms of cleaning up scans and everything like that, and that was fine. Once we kind of got over those speed bumps, I was able to go ahead forward and get them published in. But there was an agreement going into submitting stuff that, hey, your pages are going to be 100% ready, so on and so forth. So there should have been an understanding that they should have been ready beforehand. But again, the point of the thing was is not everybody may not have that experience, everything like that. So jumping in and being able to help those, so when they do get involved in future projects, they're able to just submit their stuff and not have to worry about it getting bounced back to them or anything like that, in terms of having to clean up their editing and everything. So let's go ahead and bounce this down to the overhead camera here. But yeah, it's print quality on this thing is awesome though. I'm super impressed with how it turned out. All right, do some housekeeping here before we get into it. First things first, September 13th to the 14th, going to be at tabling at APCon. I will be there both days. I will be selling the book that we're going to be looking at today. And then as well, we're going to be taking a look at, I'm going to be selling two other books. I should have a 10-page little mini comic, and then as well, number 2 for the anthology. We're going to have the submission form go up early June, and then from June to early July, that'll be kind of like the submission period for those 4 weeks. After that, we'll probably do like 2 weeks or so of editing, just kind of cleaning up any design work, so on and so forth that we need to do, fix typos, corrections, all that kind of good stuff for those first 2 weeks of July. I'll get it sent off to the printer. Typically it takes about 3 to 4 weeks for printing, and then about 2 weeks for shipping. So so that way we get our stuff towards the tail end of of August. And then if anything falls into, delay or anything like that, then we have another week or two to kind of work with here in terms of time before the con. But we already got a book in hand, and we should have like a 10-page mini comic already printed and out by that point. And then, like I said, the other anthology for number 2 that'll be pretty much getting released early September, more than likely with the time frame that we're kind of looking at here. Okay, so this is the good old book that we have here. I'll probably shut this off so it doesn't reflect. There's better. Yeah, so this is kind of what we ended up getting here, full 20-page. You can purchase this off my website. I do have it up currently. It's just sam-mcclurg.com. I'll put it in the chat here. I think I just realized that we had Guns N' Roses was playing, and YouTube ain't gonna like that. I wonder how that happened. Well, let me get my correct stream music pulled up here. Hopefully it was quiet enough to where we won't get strict for it, but we'll see. There we go. I was like just sitting here talking, and I was like, I hear Axl Rose coming through, my speakers here. Anyways, so this is what we have here. This 20-page comic, and again, have the link in the chat there if you wanted to head over to the store. Right now, I do not have a payment thing set up in its entirety, so we're just kind of doing it under the counter sort of ways. Back alley drug deal for comic books that we're doing here, mainly because I don't have like a business LLC or anything like that set up. And I'm not going to be accepting payment and stuff from you guys without having that stuff already done, which I understand that there's people out there that have done such, like, oh, I'm going to be taking debit payments and credit payments and so on and so forth. It's like, I'm not fucking doing that. I don't think I'm going to be making enough money for that to really make a difference to me in terms of like the IRS, in terms of like taxes or anything like that coming after me. But I'm not messing around with that stuff, and I'm gonna make sure that I have all of my ducks in a row before like I'm legitimately selling stuff as a quote unquote a business. But for now, I view it as kind of like a yard sale sort of thing. Like that's the kind of money that I'm making. It's like $200 here, $400 there, whatever, in terms of like the lump books that I'm selling. So it's like I'm not making enough to warrant doing that. Like I said, I'm doing the process of getting all of that stuff in a row. Probably am going to create an LLC. I think that's like kind of the direction that I'm going, and I should have all that stuff done, everything like that before the con. But for now, it's literally just, hey, reach out to me, figure out PayPal information, and then send it out to me. Give me your information from there, and we'll just PayPal the $5 back and forth, and the shipping fee, get it sent out. Yeah, thanks, man. Yeah, well, we're gonna take a look at it here and just see. I'm actually gonna grab the cover here for the original for that, so you guys can see it. I ended up doing it because I'm going through the Joe Kubert correspondence course right now, and one of the things that we had to do was create a cover. So here it is in its entirety there, the original. But yeah, like I said, the comic, it's available directly through me, and then as well all the other artists that were in the book, I sent them comp copies. So the whole thing is obviously I'm not in a position to where I can just pay people. So I was like, so how can I support them? Because obviously they're contributing to the book as well. So I just sent them 10 copies a piece, and that's $50 if they end up selling all 10 of their copies at $5, a chop. There's a team in here, and we'll just go ahead and open this up. One of the teams that did Harvest is Crazy Works. It's a artist and Lord have mercy if I could speak today. It's an artist and writer duo team. So I sent them 20 books. They already sold their 20 books. Like they're done and sold. They already reached out to me and asked like, hey, what can we do in terms of getting new ones sent out to me or sent out to us, so on and so forth. So it's like, hey, instead of having to constantly print stuff and send it out to you, worked with them, gave them a PDF, and then as well I sent them a PDF copy of the book with a blank cover, so that way they can put their own artwork on the cover because they wanted to do variants. They wanted to do sketchbook covers, so on and so forth. So it's like in the future, if you guys are going to be working with me, it's like I'm open to doing stuff like that because it's like this is more DIY, a punk energy. You know what I mean? So it's like if somebody were to take this book and take it over to a copy machine and Xerox, like 30 copies of it, I wouldn't care. And they give it out to people for free. Like that doesn't really matter to me. The whole purpose of this was to just kind of get awareness of everybody that's kind of in this book. And once we bounce around to like number 2 and then possibly like a number 3, we might look into different avenues in terms of like maybe doing like a Kickstarter and everything like that, because we plan on expanding issue number 2. So we're probably going to be looking at like 40 to like 62 to 64 pages, kind of like in that range, to a double to triple issue size. Because we only did 1 to 3 page stories in this guy. The next one we're going to be doing 1 to 6 pages. So then just from there, we're doubling the amount of pages that we're going to be doing, and then obviously the majority of people are going to be submitting 6 pages. So that's kind of the plan for the next one here. So the first thing that I had done is this is my comic here, Japan X 1974. My original idea for this, and this is just something that I'm all okay with showing you guys here. So I came up with a character, probably show them underneath here. So this is kind of like a early design that I have for the one of the characters that I'm making for the story. He's literally just a fucking mummy with a tie and a like a Magnum laser gun. But you can just see it's like I'm already naming the weapon, kind of getting down like how it reloads, the style of ammunition that it takes. And I also like made notes for myself like, hey, like his rats are too wide, so on and so forth. Because what I'm doing is I'm basically making a Dick Tracy slash Dick Tracy slash RoboCop slash like Faust comic. It's kind of hard to explain, but very still cartoony with the outlandish Dick Tracy villains and things like that. But we're getting like the satirical violence of like RoboCop, just the over the top satirical government sort of thing that's kind of going on there. And I can't remember what like the kind of the last, or like, yeah, Faust the Crow. It's kind of like the aesthetic, the outlaw, just kind of like the ink slinging and all that kind of stuff. That's where that kind of comes from. So he was the original character that I had designed, and he is the character that's actually in this book. You just don't see him because in my story, as you can see, all you see is really his hand and like a first person perspective of him looking through a scope. So you don't necessarily see him actually, like, I don't know how you want to say that, like in character. All you see is just his hands. So that'll be what he actually looks like once we roll into the actual book. The thing is, though, in issue number 2, my ideas for this anthology was as issue number 1, I'll kind of give an introduction to a character. And then for issue number 2, kind of the same thing, do like another like introduction sort of tone piece. And then once I get into like 3, so on and so forth, like for just standard issues, not anthology, but like its own story, that's where you'll see these kind of characters start to interact with each other. So this character right here on the cover, this is Ken Stein. So this is Ken Stein DDS. Let me pull this here real quick. So this is the story that I'm working on for number 2. So this is him kind of like up close. And I don't know why, but I figured that he would make a better drawing off the first issue than doing the second one. Just for whatever reason, I was vibing more with the Ken Stein stuff than I was with my. I was vibing more with the Ken Stein stuff than I was more with the little mummy guy, which I ended up calling him Cobra Surfer. That's kind of his name, and then Ken Stein is his name, which is obviously just kind of a play on Frankenstein, because again, it's more like Universal monsters mixed with Dick Tracy, that sort of thing. So we got like a mummy guy, Frankenstein guy, and these two dudes is what I'm getting at is they're going to be buddy cops. So it's kind of going to be like a weird Dick Tracy buddy cop thing, ultra violent, but like I said, with that like satirical comedy sort of violence of RoboCop. I don't know. It's a weird mix of a lot of different things. So that's kind of where we're at there. The name Cobra Surfer though, that came from there's a game, an NES game that I'm a really big fan of. It's called Cobra Triangle, a badass video game. So that's where that name had come from. For whatever reason, like Cobra Triangle, that had always just stuck with me, just those two combinations. So I put that in there, and then I was reading a lot of Silver Surfer at the time when I designed this character, so that's where the surfer had come from. I'm a skateboarder, so I like surfing, skateboarding, board sports in general, so that's where that kind of came from. And so he is a mummy hitman in space. So look forward to that when you actually get to kind of, see him in action, but that's his early character design, I guess. One of the other things that I wanted to show off here, so we're going to move the comic, we're going to start getting it more to process. So let's get to this page here. So this is just kind of the title page. I'm just grabbing the sheets here so you guys can see all the work that had gone into just doing like this one thing. So I basically draw everything at least like 2 or 3 times. I'm going to move my microphone here so it stops flipping over like that. Give me a second. All right. So I draw everything like 2 or 3 times over before I actually get it ready to put into print and like draw the final page. So you can see here that this was actually, I think may have had it earlier. Yes, this one. So this was a test page, a super early test page that I had done. So you can see that I had drawn like the dude doing the line of coke, kind of to see how that was going to look before I had done it. Made notes to myself like, hey, like make the, the coke, like do it in black and then spritz white on top of it so that way you can actually see it. And then like I was testing out different scope designs. I was looking at Japanese-made scopes, Russian-made scopes, so on and so forth, and kind of like, looking down the actual scope to see what the reticle and everything like that looked like. Kind of landed on doing a mix between like a 70s Japanese aesthetic with I'm going to turn the light on here, make it a little more bright there. So I kind of went with like a mix between like a Canadian aesthetic, a Japanese aesthetic, and a Russian aesthetic for the scope. So kind of like a mesh between all 3 of them. So then once I landed down like a scope design, I was kind of like, hey, this is, what I want it to look like. And then down here at the bottom, I was doing, like the title. So on the final, you can see here, like that's the way that the title ended up looking, which is obviously at the top. This one down here, I had it down towards the bottom. And the lettering and how it turned out, obviously I had changed. So then when I had moved to, again, this was just like a super rough test page. Once I had moved into actually like, okay, I kind of have an idea of what I want to do. This was test page number 1. So you can see that the lettering then had moved up to the top. And this design I've kind of carried over through all of my comics to where I just do like a weird, just abstract black box at the top, and then I do the lettering in white. I don't know. I think that like it's a good set piece. It's definitely something that I stole from, Stan Lee, Jack Kirby, so on and so forth. That kind of era of Marvel, that just super sensationalized text, It's kind of where I stole it from. You get that weird, just kind of brick, small paragraph at the top uh, of the title page, before we actually get into the story. It's kind of where that came from. So, just a cool little title page. I was just kind of messing around to see, like, hey, this is how I wanted it to look. And again, just kind of made notes for myself over here on my side of, what I wanted to do. So I, wrote to myself, like, hey, I want to do like a gradient of some sort over top of this. So then you're looking at what I just showed you, and this was kind of like revision number 2. Obviously, that's the finished product, so you're like, wow, that looks completely different. So this is what the original looks like in terms of the finished. So you can see that my 2 revisions compared to what it actually looks like on the finished original is way different. And that's just because I discovered an aesthetic that I really liked in terms of, I don't know what this is called, but I call this ink dragging. So the technique that I do is basically I'll grab either, my brush, or is what I like to use more often than not, is a Pilot Parallel. I'll grab the 6 specifically. I'll fill it with, my own inks. I use the parallel pens because you can get a real fine line, real thick, and just lay on the line real thick. And you just grab, paper towel, tissue, whatever you have, and you just literally just drag your ink in different directions. And the reason why I like to use this over top of maybe a brush is because you can get more fine with it. It doesn't, smear it everywhere, so you can you have more control over how much ink you're actually putting onto the paper, if that makes sense. On some of my pages, like this up here, I did with a brush because I was blacking out so much, so I could just, drag it down from there. It's kind of redundant to also use this. But, you know, more often than not, when I'm doing it in smaller areas like this, I'll use the parallel pen for that. And that's an aesthetic that I just kind of landed on. Sean Crystal and a couple of other people had said, like, no, like that's like a cool aesthetic, like keep doing that. So, that was one of those things that once I landed on that, and I had a handful of people tell me, like, I like how that looks. So I continued to do it, basically. So now all of my work, I basically have that to where I'm like, I puddle up my ink and then I just smear it around everywhere. Obviously, there's a rhyme and reason to it. All right, let's move this out of the way here. So I wanted to show you guys how this is how this idea started. Real basic. I was just sitting with my sketchbook one day. I was reading a shitload of Google 13 as one should. Give me a moment here. Excuse me. I was reading a lot of Google 13. I play a lot of Hitman, a World of Assassination. So that's where, again, a lot of the Hitman, assassination sort of stuff all comes into play here for me. But this is where how basic of an idea this came from. It was literally just I was sitting and watching something and I was like, oh, it'd be kind of cool to make like a short sequence of like a dude sitting on top of a skyscraper or whatever, shooting over to another skyscraper, just kind of killing a guy, doing whatever. So that's literally the gist of this. Hey, here's a scope, kind of looking at a city or a building. Here's the target, and then here's the the kill. Real basic. Just 3 panels. That was it. That was the idea. And then I spun it around in my head a little bit. And then I continued with that whole Cobra Surfer idea. So, like, this whole, like, he's a fiend for sex, blood, and cruising in space. Again, just kind of that sensationalized, satirical RoboCop over the top, exploitation, however you want to look at that. The Catman, But, again, this just kind of plays into that aesthetic that I was going for. Just kind of flipping through here. So then you can see before I started to do test pages in my sketchbook, I kind of put down here, that was the design. I wrote the text over top of it. You can, see that Japan 1974, and then down here I wrote city screen, so I already knew, hey, I'm going to put a screen tone down of like a city, and then I'm going to draw over top of that to, to get like that ink smear and all like the white lights and everything like that's on there. I put all of that, so you can use the screen, but not only do I use the screens, but I draw on top of them. So that was the reason why on the one test sheet that we were looking at, like this one, I was curious, like, what does it look like when you actually draw on top of the screens? Because the stuff that I was doing, I figured it would be easier to put the screen down, and since you can, since it's transparent, draw on top of the screen, rather than drawing what I'm trying to draw and then putting the screen on top of that. Because when ink is wet on top of this, again, you can smear it, and then plus you can obviously just wipe it away, so you have a lot of play on what you can do. So that's what I was doing or recommend to do if you're not entirely sure, like, hey, what it's going to look like underneath. Obviously, do test pages and everything like that, but you can have a little leeway if you just draw, or sorry, put your screen tone down, then do the inking on top of that. You fuck it up, you can just wipe it away. It's pretty forgiving. So yeah, so you can see that I worked into my sketchbook, kind of getting more designs. And then boom, we landed on, now it's a full on like thing here. And I started designing out, pages or just like the sequence. So you can kind of see that this is what I was doing. So this was, hey, this is going to be the layout for page 2. Here's a reticle, and then we're kind of zooming in further and further, and as you can see, it's like, now we can see the city, now we can see the buildings. We'll grab the final here. So you can see, like, that's kind of what I had done. I had drawn a scope and had made it like this, to where it draws the eye through the comic in that direction. I wasn't too sure how I could force the eye to move over like this from this panel, but it's a learning experience. That's something that I'll have to figure out, as time goes on. Obviously, we've already had produced this, so that kind of has passed now to correct that. But going back and looking at it, I know that's something that I need to be aware of. But that's kind of where the idea had come from. Hey, here's a scope. We're going to show it getting zoomed in on. That's exactly what that was there. And then I had like an idea of, here's a dude, I'll bring it up closer to the camera, kind of looking into a building through a scope. So you can see a dude kind of like sitting on a couch, and then this would have been the inside view of the building, of the guy kind of like looking at the couch, and then this is the window that Cobra Surfer, the character that's the sniper in the story, is looking through. So you can see I wrote like getting coke ready, because I don't know why, but I just had like this image of a dude just like doing a line of coke and then just getting blasted in the fucking head, and then having his coke straw still like sticking out of his nose, which I tried to do, but just for whatever reason, just like I couldn't get it to look right. Like it just looked weird with the straw. And actually, I can show you guys. Let's see. So this was like a test page that I had done, and you can see that I even wrote for myself like Coke straw. That this was kind of like the shock screen, or however you want to look at that, of him getting shot. So this is the splash page. So originally this was a Coke straw, and then I opted to make this kind of like a blood blast coming out of his nose. That's me as a reference image. I think people, and especially an artist, they take themselves way too serious. And Steve Rude, this is something that he does. Obviously, he uses the references, images for everything, and I'm the same way. I take photos of myself literally in every pose possible. It's like in the next thing that I'm working on, here I would grab it and show it to you. Let's see here, where's it at? So like this I put this up on Discord yesterday, but of a dude getting his head squished and kind of blown up there in my next story. All of that head squishing and everything like that. I took pictures of myself doing that so I could use it as a reference image. So, that's kind of how I do things. So when I actually use myself as a reference image, I will use myself as a reference image. That's why I kind of think this is funny. Got myself in my first comic, get my head blown off. But yeah, so that's kind of where where this had come from. So again, real rough inside the sketchbook, and then I started to make test pages of how this stuff would actually look. I had the idea of, hey, we're going to show the finger on the trigger. I opted to flip this drawing, as you can see, because I have his finger on the trigger and it's kind of going this way. But as you're reading, obviously we read left to right, so I flipped it the opposite way. So that way, when the gun is shooting, you can see that these are in different directions. Really didn't make sense. So I made sure to flip the trigger the opposite way, so it's facing the same way that the barrel is. So that way, aesthetically, it made sense. So I, wrote close up of the barrel, and then the bullet leaving the barrel. I had a little bit of challenge, I guess, of getting an aesthetic of smoke for how I draw and whatnot. So this is kind of what I ended up with here on the final. I ended up putting some white acrylic paint onto a toothbrush, and basically like a real small amount, and just sat and I just swirled it a bunch and just kind of worked with it. And so that's what that is. It's just like a real small amount of just white paint that I just kind of did that with. And then I drew the bullet over top of that so that way you could see it. Bring it up a little closer to the camera here. Sorry, there's like I have my scanner out because I was scanning pages, so like my scanner's on the opposite side of the camera, so it's kind of in the way. But just wanted to show that to you guys so you can see. And then that was the dude doing a line of coke. So my idea for this panel, or this page, was this was a panel gutter right here. This is the bullet kind of going through the panel, so it's literally like smashing through the panel like it's glass. That's kind of what all of this stuff is down here. It's like glass debris. The panel, the fourth wall, I don't know how you want to look at it, but kind of breaking through. And then that's the bullet going to the dude that's doing a line of coke here. The original idea, so as we can see, I wanted to have this was like an outside view of like the bullet, so like we're looking at the bullet kind of coming at us. So this would have been like literally like the point of the bullet. So you can see like Cobra Surfer would have been up here on like a tower, and then like the bullet would have been traveling towards the target, and then that's would have been the splash page. I opted not to do that, and I decided to do the bullet kind of going through the panel and doing that aesthetically instead. It probably would have made more sense to do this to show the bullet still traveling, but I don't know. It's hard to say. Like, I like how the one thing looks aesthetically, but I don't know how it really reads. That's just something that you just have to wait for feedback from people, right? Like, obviously I show it to like friends, family, and so on and so forth, and they get the gist of everything that's kind of going on. That's all you can really ask for. But everybody in terms of in the comic sphere that actually reads comics, makes comics, they've all said like that sequence is a little strange. It's still readable, but it's not as readable as I would like. So it's an idea that I had. It didn't come to the greatest fruition, but nonetheless, I like how it turned out. And I think for a first go round, it's not too bad. Alright, so then this was an idea that I had for a page 3. So my original thing that I wanted to do was, I was kind of obsessed at the time with like collapsible weapons. So again, to play a lot of like Hitman, things like that. So I'm like, how the fuck is this dude actually getting like a full-on sniper rifle into a briefcase? Obviously they make collapsible weapons, but my comic takes place in 1974. I'm gonna kick my cat's ass. Hold on. Get out of here. Stupid ass cat. He's scratching up my studio door. um, but my comic takes place in the 70s. So obviously technology and everything like that, you kind of have to try to stay true to the time. So hey, I gotta try to find weapons that would have been in the 70s and everything like that. There are not very many collapsible weapons in the 70s. Like there was a briefcase that the Japanese had made and a briefcase that the Germans had made, and it was just like a submachine gun. Basically, they just put an MP5 inside of a briefcase, and like the side of the briefcase kind of just slid down, and there's a bullet hole in the side of it, and that's how they would gun people down with those. And the Japanese one was very, very similar. It was like a Japanese made submachine gun, kind of like put inside of like a little briefcase, suitcase sort of thing. Um, One of my buddies, because I was a combat engineer in the Marine Corps, a weapons expert, I would say. I was a machine gun team a fire team leader in a machine gun team. For we carried a saw in a 50 cal in the machine gun team that I was in. Um, but anyways, I reached out to one of my buddies I was in the Marine Corps with, and the dude is just like more or less like a weapons historian, I would say. I kind of like picked his brain a little bit, and coming from somebody who's in comics and then somebody who's more in the realistic side of things, who actually does the study, his historically accurate, so on and so forth, like in his day-to-day job, straight up was like told me, he's like, dude, you're making a comic book, like don't get so wrapped up in trying to make it historically accurate for the period. He's like, at least try to make the design look like it would have existed during that time, but it doesn't matter. Like you're making a fucking comic book, and it's like, oh yeah, no shit. Like why didn't I think of that? It's like you're making a cartoon, you're making a comic book, however you want to look at it. It's like, dude, just get fun with it. So I kind of put that idea away and decided like, who cares about the collapsible weapon? Like you don't have to worry about that. So I just scrapped it. Um, so how he is getting a sniper rifle from point A to point B and nobody is noticing, it really doesn't matter. Who cares at the end of the day? I kind of opted for he doesn't give a fuck. He's just going to carry the thing on his back. That's kind of where I landed on things. But I was just kind of showing, different ideas and processes that I had and just got rejected. And this is all just for something that was a 3-page story. So you can see just all of the work and ideas and everything like that kind of go into everything before you actually put something into print. And I think that's really all that I have for this one, because the majority of the stuff that's in the sketchbook is for the second story and for my other mini comic that I'm making. But I do have other things to show. So again, this is just another sketchbook that I have. So I'm just like tedious with my sketchbooks. I started just like religiously kind of like putting all of my ideas in sketchbooks or just like doodling in sketchbooks and things like that. Probably around like July of last year, and I've already filled up 3 sketchbooks, almost 4 sketchbooks in their entirety. So I just advise for people to use a sketchbook, because even if you aren't going to use something, you can always go back and look at it and be like, oh, I like that character design, because like Ken Stein, the little Frankenstein dentist dude, I drew him in this sketchbook like probably around like August timeframe of last year, and then now I'm just getting around to using him in a thing, and I'm like, oh, I have like an opportunity to use him for something, and I can literally pull down, because I put up like right in front of my drawing table, I put up just kind of like tone pieces. So I'll put up like the last page that I have done, so like my test page, so that when I'm doing my final, I can kind of look at that and make edits, you know what I mean? I put up like the title page for the comic that I'm working on, and then just different things. So this is something that I just kind of have hanging up in front of my desk right now. This was the very first iteration of Ken Stein that I had done. So you can see Dentist Hitman. And the reasoning why, and you're kind of like, that's just a goofy ass idea. Like, why are you making a story about a zombie or a Frankenstein who's also a dentist? There is an interview that Todd McFarlane did. Man, I want to say it was like Wired Magazine, Variety Fair. You know, it was like one of those types of places, and it was like the internet's most asked questions about Todd McFarlane. It was like one of those types of videos, right? Anyways, somebody had wrote in and asked like, how do you feel about uh, the the teeth of Venom in like the movies? So this was around when like the first Venom movie with Tom Hardy had come out. So then he went on this rant about how people draw teeth and whatnot. He's like, the number one thing that pisses me off about monsters and whatnot is when people draw them with perfect teeth. He's like, these are monsters. They're not going to the dentist. Stop drawing them with perfect teeth. You know, make them have spit and snarl and broken teeth and different sizes and X, Y, and Z. So then I thought it would be really funny to like make like a monster dentist office. It's kind of a play on that, and this is like my own inside joke, but I'm in on the joke, so I don't care if anybody else gets it. But that's kind of where the idea had come from. I thought it was kind of funny. Um, so anyways, Cobra Surfer, the mummy that's partner. So the dentist hitman, obviously he's like a hitman as well as Cobra Surfer, the mummy who's in the first story. They're going to be buddy cops together, like buddy hitman together, but it's a buddy cop story. It's how I'm going to look at it. So this again was a super early thing. So this was even before I drew that revision that we looked at earlier. So you can kind of see, like I was talking about his raps. And I wrote to myself like he chokes with his raps. So like, and you know, in Hitman, like you have your fiber wire, you can go up behind people and kind of like, you know, choke them out. So I thought, hey, he's already a mummy. He already has wraps, so he could just unwrap his hands and then use that to like choke people. So like right there is already like a play that he can do it with just his character design on how to assassinate somebody. And then one of the things that I wanted to do, because I was reading a lot, my cat's scratching at this fucking door again, pisses me off. But the thing with Cobra Surfer is he's a surfer, so what he's gonna ride on? Well, let's have him literally ride on a snake. So I drew like this trippy ass, and I'll show you because this is just like a super early revision. I have like 3 or 4 revisions of this. I'll show off the final design at some point, but it was very much inspired by the World Serpent God of War, so kind of like that aesthetic, but more cosmic. Again, this is just like a super early drawing that I have for it. But basically, you know, he'll stand on it and have kind of like a I don't know, you want to say like a lasso or whatever, just kind of holding on to it, kind of like a horse. So that's kind of like where that idea had come from. So why not have a mummy hitman surfing through a cobra in space? So that's kind of where the space cobra kind of comes from, Cobra Surfer. So I kind of have a whole thing going on. So let's see here. I don't know if there's really anything else in here. Okay. Again, real early character design stuff. I was sitting one day and I'm like, well, he's going to need like a signature weapon. I was watching Terminator, the first one. So this is kind of where like this early design had come from. I kind of wanted like a Magnum with like a big ass scope on it, because that really doesn't make any sense. Like, why do you have like a 357 with like a massive scope on the top of it? I always thought that kind of looked funny. So kind of wanted to play into that a little bit. And then you can see like I was calling it the Laser Mag 9000. And it's like it uses batteries instead of bullets because it's an energy weapon, right? So it really doesn't make sense to have like a physical bullet kind of coming through to be a laser. So that's like something that they really don't touch on in Star Wars. It's like it's heat generated, but it's like, where does that energy actually coming from? Like, are they coming from batteries? It's like they'd have to, like that energy has to, and heat has to be coming from somewhere. It just doesn't generate from itself. So and then as well, I kind of had an idea with Judge Dredd, how he can kind of change the capabilities of the weapon that he's using just by, talking to it. So it's kind of like, so it can, has like a normal revolver capability, and then as well it has like a shotgun capability, and it has a sniper's capability when the scope's out, and it's literally just like Judge Dredd, he would just talk into it, and then it would just transform and do its thing, and then he'd use it as a shotgun or whatever it needs to be used as. And you can see this. I was starting on another design for Cobra Surfer, and then just kind of stopped. And I think that was because his neck looks a little weird here, just by looking at the drawing. I was probably like, oof, that looks rough, so I just stopped. But again, this stream is just kind of showing process of stuff. I really don't think there's anything else that I have, because the majority of the stuff, so you can see Ken Stein, DDS. This is just for like the next comic. Dumbass cat. All right. So this was another page that I had done or was working on. This was trying to get an idea of what I wanted to look at when the scope was traveling. And then I was trying to figure out like how I wanted the dude doing the line of coke to look. Like, did I want him to be sitting like at a desk, standing at a desk, standing at a table? I didn't know, and you can still see that in this rendition, I still had the drawing facing this way instead of going this way, like I ended up changing. Let's see. And we looked at this. So this was kind of the kill shot finally of the bullet hitting him, and then again this was kind of like, hey, I wanted this to be a Coke straw. So this is what the final ended up looking like, and then I opted, even when I was drawing the final, or before I started drawing the final, I knew I was going to change this, so I just opted to make it like a blood splatter. So that's the bullet kind of traveling through the panel. Like I said, we had seen in the previous page. It's kind of going through here, and this is all like screen toned and everything like that. And this idea down here was I needed to fill this space because it was just blank. I wasn't too sure how I was going to fill it. So I was like, oh, I'll just draw like the contract down here and just have like a basic contract completed. 10,000 whatever currency this is. I have determined that the fake currency in my comic is going to be called Zenny. I realize that there's a million different things that use Zenny as a currency. I like how it sounds. That's what I'm going to be using. Zenny. Xeni. Zenny. So this is the logo, I guess. The thing for Zenny. It's just an X with a Y going through it. So yeah, so it's kind of like 10,000 Zenny, and then I wrote down here like location, Japan X, target, just no name cokehead, just kind of wrote that on here. And then the blood splatter effect, or the blood drop effect, I sat one day, and this is just one of the pages that I had, but I was just messing around with like dropping ink on a page and kind of holding it at different angles, dropping different amounts of ink, and seeing kind of like how I wanted the drip to look before actually I had gone in and put it onto the final page. But you can see here that the final page compared to the final comic looks pretty different. So the lettering itself here, I ended up doing this digitally, which typically I would no or say don't do. However, when I already had everything scanned in and was doing, A couple of people were like, I think this would really benefit for like some sort of sound effect. I already had the page in, completely edited and done, and like pretty much already dropped into the book when I was getting that feedback. So I'm like, what can I do to kind of spice this up real quick? I have like a million digital fonts that I like to use that don't look like a quote unquote like your stereotypical digital fonts. That's why I opted to use something like this. But in the future, so you guys can see that I'm not some fucking hack here, I can letter like that. That way I get my pass on this one for making it digital. It's just I just didn't do the lettering on the original page for whatever reason, and like I said, once I had the thing like in the book and done, I was getting feedback from people like it could benefit from a sound effect. So I opted to put a little splat in there. And then as well, like down here, I put the end that's digital. That wasn't handwritten. I did all this other stuff. You can kind of see it's all done by hand. The lettering is. So, but yeah, it's the only thing that's really digital here on my end. I think that everybody else, for the most part, that's in this comic. So this is Crazy Works. I believe that this is all. I'm going to shut this light off so it doesn't reflect. I think that this is all digital. Pretty badass, like horror story. Making cutters. So this is from John. He's a local dude here in Wisconsin with me. This is hand drawn pencil. It's all just pencil. And then Nathan, this is inked, so I knew this was drawn by hand. And then I'm pretty sure that Grant, I believe this was also drawn by hand. So this is Anze. He is in Slovenia, actually. I'm pretty sure this is digital. Slovenian artist. And then Magu Media here. He is in Belgium. I believe this was digital. There's some fumetti going on in this. There's like actual photos of like Corollas back here, which I think is pretty funny. And we had to do a little bit of work because when he had originally sent me the pages, the color of itself of the car is silver. So when he sent me the pages, had thought like that would work, but obviously if like you were to print something that's in color, that's still, even if it's silver, if you're printing it in color, it's not going to look proper. So I was like, you have to make sure that you're actually changing the color of your file before you're sending it to me. So then once he, condensed the file down or adjusted the file to like proper grayscale, it was correct. But then this is 'Twas a Fine Plan, James Carney. He also did the back cover. I figured you would start the book with your strongest start and end with your strongest stuff. So myself and James here with the 3 pages, kind of open it up and close it. And then I also wanted to, because he has a lot of black, and then my stuff as well, as you can see, it's a lot of black. So I kind of wanted to have it open with black and close with black, and then kind of the stuff in the middle be a lot more breathable and readable. Just like a design aesthetic for the layout as well. There was a rhyme and reason to like the way that the pages are laid out and some thought put into it. And then at the end here, we just kind of have a thank you page. So obviously, this has been a fucking journey, man. And it's like I gone from literally this time last year, drawing fucking stick figures and stuff, to having this produced in less than a year. You know what I'm saying? So it's possible to make comics. It's possible to be able to draw these things. It's just you just have to put the fucking work in and put the time in. You know what I mean? That's like I was working 10-hour days, going to classes, putting in the work, hitting the sketchbooks, doing my assignments, doing things outside of that. It's like 24/7. It was just comics, man. I'd like wake up, comics, go to bed, think about comics. It's like all I would do. And that's how I got here. So hard work, determination, things like that, they really do pay off. Because like I said, like this time last year, I was drawing stick figures, and I'm drawing shit like this now. So just to kind of put that into perspective. So with that being said, thank you page. Kind of wanted to break down, some people that I wanted to thank. I had gone into a little bit more detail. If you guys wanted to head over to my site, the like what Sam up to little page. That's kind of like my blog. I do a weekly blog there, and I put one up a couple of days ago. I'll kind of talk about corporate comics, and like the world of just the quote unquote the big two and what they can do or look at to kind of improve. So that's up there. But the first one that I had done, it was about the comic and kind of like the people that are involved. So people that are named here, I kind of went into detail about their what they had done for me along the way, so on and so forth. So if you want a little bit more information about that, a little more in-depth info, you can find that on my website. Basically, Shrimps, aka Mary, that's that's my girlfriend. Super supportive, obviously, during this entire time. She had sat and watched me go from just being a collector to being a cartoonist in that period of time. And she, even says like it's super impressive and inspiring that, you decided that I'm gonna start drawing, start making comic books, and I fucking did. So, again, it's just like the drive that I had and I still have to make books. A lot of that, again, it comes from Ed and the Kayfabe crew. Obviously, I put in a dedication in here to him. I love Jim, and clearly Jim has helped me out along the way here as well, giving me a shitload of advice. I was drawing for probably about 3 or 4 months, and I had a handful of drawings. Like I had a couple of like Toth drawings, some Space Ghost drawings. Just kind of crap in a sketchbook, really. Just took pictures of them, and I just sent it to him, and I just said, hey, it's like I discovered your guys' channel a couple months ago, and it kind of got me inspired to draw, so on and so forth. And hey, thanks. That was pretty much like the email. He emailed me back and was like, hey, dude, like for only drawing for like 3 or 4 months, like this is fucking amazing, actually. He was like, do not stop, keep going. I fully encourage you to do so. Like, if you have any questions, ask. Like, that was pretty much like his email, and I was like, oh, like, okay. And as well, like my mentor, Ray, who is named in here. He's since retired, but he was given courses at the local museum. Met up with him. I was taking figure drawing classes, and then I'd seen that they were doing like monster drawing classes, so on and so forth. And I was like, oh, cool. I was like, I kind of got my figures and stuff down a little bit. Been in this course for a couple weeks. I'm like, I'm gonna venture off and do some other things. So I took his monster course, and then come to find out, oh, he was the art director at Kitchen Sink for 15 years. So Kevin Eastman, Will Eisner, Mark Schultz, so on and so forth, like all those people he's worked with directly, colored on all these books, and I even had in my collection. So like that was kind of sweet. I had showed up to class one day with like a stack of books that he had worked on and showed it to him because there was like stuff that he had forgot about, right? So that was kind of cool to see his, to see his reaction. They kind of give me stories about stuff. So he was a big proponent into everything, but he was the same thing. I showed up to class, and he thought I was already cartooning for a while at that point, and drawing for a long time. And I was like, dude, I've only been doing this for like 2 months. And he was like, his eyes went, whoosh, and his jaw hit the fucking floor. And he was like, all right. He's like, what's your goal? That was literally his next question. He's like, so what's your goal with this? I was like, well, to be honest with you, I kind of want to make a comic book. It's kind of where I'm at. He's like, no, no, no. He's like, you. He's like, you want to make comic books, like as in terms of more than one. Literally, the because of how his classes worked, it would be like you'd have one day of class, have a day off, have a day of class, and then that was like your two classes for the week, and then we did that for several weeks. So two classes a week, and literally the next day that I showed up, he had like a stack of like stuff for me to like look at. So like a bunch of Wally Wood stuff, a bunch of Harvey Kurtzman stuff. People like I didn't know who the fuck these people were, and basically like read through this, look at it. It was more like instructional stuff, like Wally Wood's 22 pounds that always work, that kind of stuff. Read through it, and that's where I was kind of like, oh, like I was getting like Ed and Jim obviously taught a shitload about like the actual process of making comics and all that kind of stuff, but actually like getting different like perspectives and learning about different ways that people may have like made the comic, right? Like Ed and Jim really never like got into that nitty gritty unless like they had somebody in like a shoot interview, but obviously they're not gonna have fucking Will Eisner in a shoot interview. The dude's dead. So he taught me a lot about that kind of stuff. And obviously, like I said, he worked directly with Will Eisner. So being able to get all that perspective from somebody who worked directly with these people was really eye-opening. And I think that's an experience that nobody else is going to be able to get. Like I said, the dude has retired. And um, when I was like name dropping stuff on him, like Don Simpson and people like that, he was like, oh, like this dude loves comics. I haven't had a student like this, and he basically went forward and put in the extra effort to give me all of the advice and taught me all of the extra things that he didn't have to, right? So essentially became my mentor from there, and he got me in contact with Don Simpson. So you can see that I got Don named in here as well. So Don and I, we email back and forth every once in a while. He's somebody who's super inspirational to me, mainly just the dude's been doing it since the 80s, and his craft from day one has basically been like perfect. I love his lettering and how it looks. I love his cartooning, so that's a big proponent into why I love Don so much. I reached out to him, because Ray, had kind of filled me in on everything with Don because obviously they knew each other because Don had worked at Kitchen Sink during that time. So once we were conversing back and forth a little bit, kind of formed a little bit of a relationship. I would say we're not like friends or mentors or anything like that, but it's he knows who I am and I can ask him things, and he always gives me feedback. So I definitely appreciate Don. He's going to be at EDPCon, which I'm going to be at, obviously. So I can't wait to actually meet up and talk with him and shoot the shit about Kitchen Sink comics, because I'm a Wisconsin dude, and Kitchen Sink is one of those things that I wish was still around because they're a fucking great publisher. I love publishers that they just don't care and it's just like whatever it is, we'll put it out. And Fantagraphics, they have super high standards, obviously, for what they're publishing. They'll publish anything as long as it has a super high standard. So obviously, like they do things like Red Room and they do things like Crumb and all that kind of stuff. So like they're all over the spectrum, but they're not gonna like produce like weird down and dirty like what I'd call it B tier comics, like you see in your dollar bins and things like that. Kitchen Sink, they didn't care whatever it was. They're like, hey, if it looked like a comic and it had a dick in it, they'd produce it. Like they didn't care. You know what I mean? So I love that about Kitchen Sink. It's kind of like, again, that punk DIY. Like, we don't care. We're just here to publish comics. I'm just flinging them out the door. Wish they were still around, but it makes sense why they're not. So, but yeah. So that's kind of the gist there with that. And then the back cover that we had done for this was for James Carney had done this. Now, one of the things that I can tell you, and I hadn't noticed this when he sent it to me, it's probably going to be real hard to tell, and I don't know if we're going to be able to see it. Probably not in the stream. Yeah, it'd be impossible. But there's a little bit of blue line still left from his page when he was drawing on this. So like the Starthmore like page lines that goes around the borders. Still see it, just barely. I had seen it when he sent me the file, but I kind of wanted to keep it. Typically, that's something that you would want to go in and use like your contiguous color selection tool, and you better just like click that, it highlights all of that color that's on that page, and just delete it, and just fucking gets rid of it. It's pretty simple, especially if you're working in black and white. It's real easy to notice that kind of stuff. However, sometimes when you're scanning the scan artifacting, you know, it'll be like whitish to like a gray, like that outer scan artifact. I believe that's what happened here, but I kind of wanted to keep it because it gives it like this weird, like, not grungy look, but it gives it like a cool aesthetic. Like I said, you really can't see it in the stream, but in person you definitely could see, like it says, like Starthmore right here, and it kind of, but it's like it's transparent enough that it looks good, and it's not so like in your face that it looks like unfinished work. You know what I mean? Like it kind of looks like it was done intentionally. However, it wasn't. But I like how it looks. For the next go round, because on these pages, as you can see, like we used a lot of blacks. My stuff, it looked fine. I think that really comes down to because I hand drew everything, so you can see, like, especially like here, like my blacks and stuff, there's a lot of variance in my black. It isn't just straight black all the way through. There's different tones to the black, as opposed to, you know, the people that were just straight digital. Not this one, because they used gray tones, but like this stuff here, like straight, where it's just straight black, like there's no gray tones. That's something that obviously I would recommend for the artist to do, is to clean it up and to use gray tones and things like that really help, because this is just straight, just paint bucket black, right? So there's a thing that you can look at to help improve things. So with that being said, I think what would help out a lot with this, though, is if we would have went with like uncoated paper, kind of like a newspaper stock style. They don't make newspaper stock style anymore, but just an uncoated paper in general. That way it takes the ink better, especially if we're laying down thicker blacks like this, to help give it it's not as harsh on the white paper. It 100% was purely for a cost cutting measure. Why I went with this, because the uncoated paper, it's like 50 cents more a sheet, and then when you're doing that into the math, and you're doing 24 pages of comics, because even though this is quote unquote a 20-page comic, your front covers and your back covers and your insides, those are considered pages. So technically this is 24 pages. If you were taking it to a printer, that's how many pages you're paying for. So when you're doing that at 50 cents more a sheet, you're doing the math that I'm printing 300 of those, that's X amount more, just a book. It's like, no, it's the cost wasn't there for what the engagement was. But for number two, I think there's going to be enough engagement and there's going to be enough interest in the book that I'm thinking about doing a Kickstarter and rolling into that and seeing, or like at least a fundraiser of some sort, and using that as a way to pay the artists, fund myself, fund the printing, and then we just get it done and out from there. As opposed to getting the books made and then having to worry about selling it after the fact. Obviously, selling the book is where a lot of the work comes into play. So maybe selling it along the way, instead of selling after the fact, you know, will help me out a lot, because like having to ship the books out to all the artists was costly to me. And then as well, like some of them are international, so then as well with all the tariffs and shit like that that's going on, having to bring them in for import fees and taxes. Just nuts. One of the artists sent them out to him, cost him a fat 90 bucks to accept the books into their country. Fucking nuts. So even the money that they would be making off this, which, you know, $5 a slap, you're only making 50 bucks off your stack of books that I sent you. So it's like you're not even making money off of this. But like I said, the point of this book really wasn't to make the money. It was more to get people's names out there, more to get the experience into the comic book making. It ended up being this thing ended up being good enough that I think that, hey, we should probably end up selling this. Like ultimately, what it ended up being. So it went from being free to I'm gonna put a $5 tag on it. Um, we've already sold 43 copies of this, I want to say. The team that's down in they did the Harvest story in the book. Let's open this up here. That did the Harvest creative works. Sorry, crazy works. Um, they've already sold their 20 copies. It was a team of 2, so I sent them 20. They've already sold their 20 copies. I have done 2 trips to the comic book shop. They've sold through 2 waves of books. I've given them, the first time I given them 4 books. They sold through them that day. Yesterday I went and I dropped off 7 books to them. And while we were there, I'm not even kidding, a dude walks into the shop. And this was like my, like, thank God I made this fucking comic, like, moment, or I'm making comics like this moment. Dude walks into the comic shop and he's like, hey, the Zach, the comic owner, is like, hey, is there anything I could help you with? Are you looking for anything? And the dude's like, yeah, I'm actually looking for, like, underground, like, outlaw style comics. He's like, kind of looking for, like, that style. And Zach is like, yeah, we really don't have anything like that, blah, blah, blah. And if we did, basically, like, this motherfucker over here already bought it. And I was like, yeah, because I've cleaned that store out. You know what I mean? And, but I was like, however, walked over to the shelf, grabbed my book off of it, handed it to the guy. And I was like, is this what you're looking for? Man, this is exactly what I was looking for. Hell yeah, like, this is badass. Bought the book right in front of me. So, like, right there was just proof of concept that it was worth being sold. Somebody came into the comic shop looking for a quote unquote. He literally said outlaw comic, like 2AT, like that's what he said. I walked over to the shelf. I was standing in the store, handed it to him. Obviously, this is me right on the cover, and I'm like, this is our comic, man. He picked it up, so it's like that. That is why I did this. You know what I mean? Get people motivated to make comics, but ultimately, like, get books like this into hands that are not being made. Like, I understand there's plenty of artists out there that are making, like, super violent shit, making anthology books and all that kind of stuff, but that isn't getting thrown into people's faces. So the more people that are making this kind of shit, the better. You know what I mean? So it's awesome. It's just great for artist awareness and awareness for comics in general. Happy that we can contribute, and I'm glad that we're going to be making a number 2, possibly even a number 3. I got my own mini comic coming out. So, like, just this year alone in 2025, it's like I'm going to have 3 comics made. And it's like, fuck yeah, man. You know what I'm saying? Like, fuck yes. Like, that's awesome. That's super exciting. That's, like, driving to me. And I tell you guys, like, while you're in the process of making this, like, you don't know how it's going to turn out. You kind of have all these ideas, and once you actually see the wheels kind of get in motion, you're like, yes, and the wheels get greasier, and they're easier to move, and they just continuously go. Your momentum kind of slows down a little bit once it gets into printing, and then that's where it's, like, honestly, it's, like, super stressful when it's in printing, because, like, the printer is calling you. Like, I was, like, working my normal day job. I was on the phone with the printer. I'm trying to do, like, my normal day job shit, and they're like, hey, like, you got pages that need to get corrected and moved around and blah, blah, blah. So that's, like, one of the reasonings why, like, this last page over here has, like, a white edge at the top and at the bottom. Is because for whatever reason, it didn't look like this in the print preview. My page, when they were putting it in, and you can kind of see it. I doubt you can see it in the stream. But we'll try to show it. But you can see, like, right here on the edge, you can see where, like, the eyeball starts to get reproduced again. So for some reason, when I was sending this off to the printer, the page was, like, doubling. So, like, it would go on, and then you can see, again, like, this real fine edge, and, like, the eyeball, like, right here is, like, getting drawn again. So like for some reason, like it was like expanding the image out past the page. But obviously, I'm not a fucking idiot. I drew my stuff to size, scanned it to size, resized it to the way that it's supposed to, and it was laid out perfect. And for whatever reason, they were showing me, like they were sending me pictures. When they're printing the book, it was like obscuring the image and it was stretching the edges of the image. So like the tops, the bottoms, and the sides, it looked terrible. And they couldn't figure it out. I couldn't figure it out. Like on my end, it looked fine. On their end, the print preview looked fine. But when it was going through the printer, it looked fucked up. So they were like, we can do one or two things. Either we can print it like this, leave it, or you can try to put a white edge at the top and the bottom, and at least we can shrink down the image that way. And then on the side, you'll still have that bleed, but it's not going to be as noticeable. So that's what we just kind of opted to do to just get the book done and printed and out the door. And that's just things that you'll run into. And like I said, it's like I was dealing with this while I was in the middle of working my normal day job. So it was like, just do it, get it done, send it out. So I opened up the file, shrunk it down, put white edges on it. In retrospect, I kind of wish that it did black edges. It is what it is. Again, learning experience. I really don't think it takes away from the from the reading experience at all. So, but yeah, I think that's probably where we'll start to wrap it up, though. Just kind of show it off a little bit. Again, this is going to be available through my website. All of the artists that are in here are also going to have it up through them, either on their Instagrams or their on their websites as well. So be sure to go out, follow them, hit them up. Just at least follow their Instagrams and all that kind of stuff, their socials. Next week is what we're going to be doing, because I have a fat stack of books that I picked up from the shop yesterday, and then as well I picked up from Dave or West Coast Avengers about a week or so ago. Because I've sold my comic book habit has now been funded by making these. So it's kind of come full circle. It's like I went yesterday to the shop, dude handed me money, and I was like, nah, because I'm gonna be buying books. So it's like no reason to be doing that now. So it's like it kind of it's awesome. I could walk into the shop, support what he's doing there, selling comics, get my name out there, and then as well I get pretty much a fat ass discount on my comics. It's like yesterday as I walked out with $45 basically in my pocket worth of comics, because of the work that I had done, right? And then like I said, I gave him another. He went from, what was it, 7 copies now, or 4 copies to 7 now that he has in his shop. And he's closed on Sundays, so we'll see. I doubt he moved any, because I was in there later yesterday, so I doubt he moved any more than the one that we had sold when I was in the store. But I think when Wednesday rolls around, when it's like new comic book day, if the comic doesn't last through Monday or Tuesday, I think on Wednesday when new comic book day rolls around, I think that thing is gonna fly off the shelf and it's gonna sell like that. And then he's gonna be contacting me for more copies. I think is how it's gonna end up. The other 2 shops that are in the area, I haven't heard back from yet on how they're doing with their copies, and they're like 45 minutes away, both respectively, in different directions. One's 45 minutes south, and the other one's 45 minutes north of where I'm at. So it's not like the easiest places to really get to for me. So I haven't gone back up there to kind of see, where everything is at. But they have my information. I said, if you guys run out and need anything, feel free to call and ask. But I'm not entirely sure how many copies they have actually sold, but they have 5 apiece. So, with the 40 some that we've sold, and then like the 10 that are there, the 50, and then we've sent out like 60 comics. So there's like 130, 140 X comics already out in the wild. So it's kind of crazy. I printed 300. I printed 300 of them, and we're just about halfway sold through them. I had 4 boxes of comics show up at my doorstep, and I only have two. I have two left sitting over here all on my studio floor, and I have like one bundle sitting in my car. Because like you never know, it's like you got to use it as like your business card. Even though I did make business cards, um, but is what I wanted to do was oh is basically it's like if I'm out and I hear somebody talking about comic books or whatever, it's like want to be able to sell it to them, right? So it's like just having it readily available. So I just carry a small bundle around, 20 I think, with me. Um, but yeah, so next week though we're gonna be looking at a haul, because again, I pretty much all of the books that you'd be looking at, except for the ones that I bought from Dave, were pretty much 100% free because I was already selling these books. And if you guys already don't have a copy, I would recommend to get one because I don't foresee them lasting long. So I'm gonna at least save 100 of them for Eddie Pecan. I can always reprint more. That wouldn't be an issue, but I don't really want to if I don't have to, especially if I wanted to have a #2 issue out at that point. So if you want any, hit me up directly. Hit up one of the other artists directly, and then as well West Coast over at West Coast Avengers. This upcoming sale he's going to be doing. He's going to be doing a 2-day sale on I think Wednesday and Thursday. He should have my books already by that point. I want to say they should be there like towards the early of this upcoming week. So tomorrow or Tuesday, with because of the holiday. So he'll have them on his stream, and I don't know if he's giving them away. I don't know if he's going to be selling them at $5 a piece. I just sent them to him, and I said, do what you will with them. So if he wants to sell them on his $5 wall, go for it. Wants to give them away, go for it. It really doesn't make a difference to me. I just sent him a stack of like 5 or 6 books, and so if you guys want to get them from him, they'll be there readily available. So yeah, next week we're just going to be taking a look at a stream, and I'm gonna head out here, gotta head over to my desk, work on some pages, and we're gonna keep cranking out comics, baby. But until next week, peace. Thanks for hanging out.